Yo guys, what's up? It's your boy Excoundrel here, your millennial dad gamer. We're going to be going into some tier lists for weapons in Moco. Now, caveat, there are some weapons that I haven't unlocked, primarily stuff that you get later in the game. There are at least a few weapons that I'm going to have on the tier list that basically say, I don't know. However, this tier list is designed to be for you guys who are probably somewhere between level 16 and 20 at the time being, still grinding at a normal pace, not spending 10 hours a day somehow playing Moco, have no idea how. Literally no idea. This guy must have not slept. The game's been out for 3 days and he's already at Elite Hunter level 21. I quite literally have no idea how this has happened, but you can get a good idea of like how the top players think about some of the weapons. You can see that some of the daggers you can see here, the spin sickle, as well as the bow, they're also sort of highly valued by a lot of these guys because you can see that they're running with them. However, I can't comment on most of these for the time being, so we're going to put those sort of top level stuff in the I don't know yet column. And speaking of the tier list, let's just jump straight into it. So, what am I like judging the criteria on? And before we do get into this, by the way, about 10% of you that watch these videos are subscribed. So if you could subscribe to the channel and you want to see more Moco content, that would be amazing. Don't have to, but it would be amazing. So what are we doing in judging criteria? Well, really what I'm looking at is sort of like how overall strong the weapon is. You know, there are some very easy ones that we can just say it's a rift weapon because it is primarily designed to be supportive in a group setting. All of the weapons have kind of like their niches, but I just want to make sure that, you know, we are assessing them on sort of a holistic strength. Like, hey, like this is good in a lot of situations. So let's start off. Absolutely no idea. I'm going to put the I don't know yets into the I don't know yets category. So these two here specifically, I don't know yet. A lot of people are using these daggers, so I'm going to assume they're quite good or at least quite fun to play with. But I've not tried them. I don't know enough about them for the time being. So I don't know about these two particular weapons. So we'll have to see like what that is down the line, but I have to get that out of the way. These guys are in the I don't know yet category. You can see I don't know yet. Okay, so let's move on to something that's a little more easy as well. Let's talk about the Techno Fists. Techno Fists, at least at this stage in the game, are very, very, very strong. And there is a very specific reason for the Techno Fists being this strong. And it's because they are versatile. They are a strong mix of single target and area effect. They are ranged, so it means that you don't have to invest as much in self-healing when you want to go into some harder level content. And in general, they are very, very good at having high damage output across a variety of scenarios. You've got to remember that there is no, apart from like a few of the Rift bosses and maybe in PvP, there aren't many situations where it's only single target or only area of effect. You're usually going to find that for general playstyle, general playthrough, there's going to be a mix of both. And that is what Techno Fists are good at. They are ranged, so they keep you safe. They have a good mix of area effect and also single target built into them. They work well with a lot of the gadgets. They're generally just the most versatile early game weapon especially. They will probably get outshone. You can see that very few of the top players are using Techno Fists, and I think as you go on, you start to become a little bit more specific in your setups. But with Techno Fists, especially as you're just playing through the game, my number one recommended weapon because they are just so versatile. You don't need to invest loads in self-healing. You can go heavy on the damage, keep yourself safe. They're very, very, very good. All right, what about Monster Slugger? Monster Slugger is a solid B. The reason Monster Slugger is in the B category is it's a melee weapon, very good area effect, not too bad single target, but it's a melee weapon. And if you're a melee weapon, especially if you're in the shorter range end of melee weapons, and you know Monster Slugger is on the shorter end range end of melee weapons, you need a lot of self-healing, especially as the content gets harder. Monster Slugger is perfectly fine if you're going into low-level content, you just want to slap your way through some low-end, monsters, but it's not great as you go further and further up, especially when you get to levels like this. When you get to the summoning grounds, like if I went into there with Monster Slugger, unless I'm running around with a Death Ball squad, I'm gonna die. I mean, I would die in Cave of Spirits most of the time, or at least close to, without any kind of really solid form of self-healing. So, you know, Monster Slugger is okay, but I wouldn't call it like a really high tier weapon.
CPU core. I really, really don't like this weapon. I don't think it's that good at all. I think the problem with CPU bomb is that it's not a huge amount of damage. It's all area effects, so its single target isn't great. Its combo attack is a delayed bomb explosion, which, you know, candidly, again, just it's too heavy on the area effect, and there are ways to amplify the other weapons to have a very, very, very solid area effect. I mean, the fact that, you know, I'm going to just jump back to game, but the fact that we have Explodomatic Trigger, that basically solves a lot of area effect issues for a lot of weapons in the game. And so therefore having a weapon that's purely dedicated to area effect is not particularly strong. There are other weapons that do it better. And speaking of which, I also really hate Portal Gun. I think there are probably setups that work for it, but it's low. Its base damage is so low and it feels so unimpactful that it is reliant on its really gimmicky mechanic of reactivating one of your gadgets. I played with it a lot. It never feels like I'm doing any damage with it. And it is a damaging weapon. It's not supportive. I mean, obviously you could run it as a supportive amplifier, so you could run it with like the healing and you get like double healing and stuff, but realistically, why would you do that when you just have the Staff of Good Vibes, which is, you know, very, very strong, and generally like the go-to healing weapon outside of Medicine Ball as well. Speaking of Medicine Ball, don't know enough about it yet. I haven't played with it. I think I'm close to unlocking it, but I haven't played with it. So Medicine Ball, I don't know enough about yet, but I'm going to assume that it's probably going to sit in the Rift category. I mean, Rift category is kind of meant for stuff that I think is very specific to Rifts. And so like anything that's like party orientated, I think is like very much like Rift category. But yeah, I don't know why you would sort of run a supportive setup when you just have better supportive weapons, and it doesn't really feel like a great offensive setup either. You know, maybe down the line when there are some more gadgets that are on a lower cooldown, like the only really low cooldown one is the Monster Zapper, and that just like basically gives you some strong single target damage, but is that better than just running an actual single target focused weapon? Probably not. Spin Sickle was one of the best weapons in the closed beta. It was very strong. A lot of people use it. Very, very high prevalence in the high hunter lists. I think Spin Sickle is still considered one of the best weapons in the game. Haven't had a lot of hands on them at the time myself. Got a little bit of playtime during one of the closed betas, but you know, if it is anything near what it was during that point, I can confidently say it's one of the better weapons in the entire game. Really good range for a melee weapon. A lot of high damage output. Just a very, very strong weapon from what I can remember. Staff of Good Vibes. Now, Staff of Good Vibes, you might think should go in the Rift category, but it's actually just a really strong weapon to take to a lot of scenarios. It's great in open mapping because you can join a team and it makes it much easier to kind of crush through some of the larger monsters. It's very good to run it in some of the higher tier maps because you then have the ability to kind of sustain a group that, you know, and you kind of have to go as a group in some of these higher tier maps, especially as not all of us are level 23 elite hunter. But it is just a really, really good weapon in general, and I think overall very strong. It's great in Rifts. It's great in everyday play. The only reason I have this Rift category is because I'm sure Medicine Ball is good in Rifts, but I just don't know what its like impact is elsewhere. I mean, realistically, you know, Staff of Good Vibes is a Rift weapon primarily, but because of the way that it works in some of the higher tier maps, you need to have a healer realistically, otherwise everybody dies. So it's a good weapon to have in those situations. If you play in a group or play in a duo, even just one of you running Staff of Good Vibes is generally pretty strong. Shield and Toothpick. I think it's decent. It's unnecessary in open mapping, and frankly, not that necessary in Rifts for the time being. I think the further we go into the game, the more necessary it will be to have someone that runs this in the party, being like you need a tank at some point. The only time I've seen it be really strong is in arena or like, you know, PvP. This is the only time that I've seen this particular item be strong. That's why I'm not putting it down in C tier, because the C tier items I've just never really felt have been strong. I don't think they're absolutely like useless, but I definitely don't feel like they're super strong. Whereas the Toothpick and Shield, I think it is strong, and I've seen it be strong in PvP. Obviously, good to have one of these guys in the Rift, but not necessary. Right now, you can beat most of the Rift bosses all the way up to Big Papa, whatever his name is, without needing a tank. In fact, I actually just got a record on Big Papa with everybody using the bow. So yeah, I think that's just worth noting that
That is, it definitely has its uses in PvP, but frankly, it's not a great like all-round weapon, and its DPS is pretty low, and frankly, the 25% damage reduction doesn't do much when you haven't got a great amount of self-healing coming out from it as well. The bow, the bow is incredible. Actually, well, speed shot. Let's call it what it is. It's the speed shot. It's actually one of my new favorite weapons. It is incredibly strong. You can set it up to be stronger in mapping setting by having like Explodomatic on. It is primarily designed to be a boss DPS weapon, so it is primarily very high single target. If you have this will be your highest single target DPS weapon in the entire game. It is incredibly strong from that respect, but not that great when you're in large groups, so you have to have something to compensate to have it in large groups. But it is incredibly strong. It is very good. And you guys, once you get hold of it, you should start doing the rift bosses with this weapon, because you will blitz through them super quickly. Ever since I unlocked this weapon, just going to give you some context, I have done Dead End in really quick time. I could probably do Overlord's Chamber even quicker now. I also just did Twilight Takedown in the very quick time as well. Haven't been able to do Rage Room and Double Hop because I always get into a group of people who just tend to like drag their feet clearing the mobs. But anyway, it's irrelevant to this conversation, so we're going to go back to the tier list. And finally, we've got Mr. Wolfie Stick. I think Wolfie Stick is really good. I don't think it's S tier. I think it's outclassed from a DPS perspective on a single target basis compared to the Sniper's Bow, and it's actually quite comparable to Techno Fists when you take it into a boss fight. But it is still a really good weapon. It's very good from a solo perspective because you can obviously summon your pet, and that gives you an extra tank. So if you're ever in a situation where you're just farming by yourself, this is a great weapon to have. And most people like it because it summons a pet. So like it is good in that respect, but just feels a little outclassed compared to some of the S tier weapons, in my opinion. I think that these guys at the top, and there, by the way, there's no order on here. I haven't done it from like left to right being like better than others, but I've just kind of slapped them wherever. But I think like, actually no, I have, because I put this in front of Staff of Good Vibes. I put Techno Fist up there. I think realistically Speed Shot's better than Techno Fist, but Speed Shot is like super specific right now, whereas Techno Fist is just a better all-round leveling weapon. But yeah, Wolf Stick is very good. It's just not, in my opinion, an S tier weapon. I think it is strong though, and I think like there's a reason that most people use this weapon at the moment. It's very strong from a solo perspective because you can just run in with the pet and you have some way to tank. However, I just find it a little less versatile than the Techno Fists, and the AoE ability, the sort of natural area effect clearing ability of the Wolf Stick is a little more limited than the Techno Fists. Even with your pet having a bit of a cleave, you don't get the same level of DPS output that you do when you have the bounce coming out of your Techno Fists. Anyway, that was really quick. There aren't that many weapons. I'm going to do this for gadgets, and I'm also going to do it for passives as well. But I'm just going to try and get a little further into the game and unlock some more, because obviously like this, I'll probably redo this once I've had a chance to play with all the weapons. Like I just don't know what these three are particularly like, whereas I have played with Spin Sickle before and obviously have just recently unlocked Speed Shot. But these three, I just don't know what they're like, and I don't want to give you a false opinion based on having never played with them at all. But there we go. That is my tier list. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe, and I will see you soon.